Frédéric Chopin is celebrated for piano pieces, preludes, nocturnes, polonaises, a composer for the solo performer, not for the orchestra. Yet Chopin is the person who put his finger on the nub of Musesounds' problem and opportunity. He who phrases incorrectly is like a man who does not understand the language he speaks. In my video comparing the Musesounds sample orchestras, I said only the free strings and brass offer classic phrasing, that is, they interpret slurs as legato. I said that was a downside for the other libraries which, in the absence of other articulations, play legato all the time. In fact, even the free strings and brass don't do phrasing quite right. The snippet of Beethoven's Sixth that I used in the orchestra comparison video is great for illustrating the problem with instrumentalists who don't take Chopin seriously. Here are the strings near the beginning of that excerpt. For the first violins, the first 3 notes are under a slur, so they're played with one bow stroke and should move smoothly from one to the next. Then the following 12 notes, all the semiquavers in the second bar, are under a slur. They should run smoothly together. But phrasing is about gaps, as well as just one thing after the other. And there's a phrase break between the first bar and the second. One slur ends, another begins. So the bow stroke and the legato should not cross the bar line. The phrasing says there's a tiny gap between the E and the F sharp. This is a good illustration of where Musesounds' classic phrasing doesn't work right. It sees a note under a slur, and even if it's the first or last note in the phrase, thinks play legato. So it bridges the gap between the E and the F sharp. The same goes for the second violin line. It should be played as 2 6-note phrases than one 12-note phrase. Instead, Musesounds' classic phrasing plays the whole thing as one long legato phrase. Still, classic phrasing does a whole lot better with this snippet than the alternative, which is play everything legato. Beethoven moves the violas and also the cellos, though you don't see them on screen right now, from one pitch to the next every half a bar, but that movement is offset by a semiquaver from the beats. Maybe he did this to give a slightly unsettled feeling in the run-up to the big chords. When this line is played legato, though, the repeated notes modge together and it sounds like long notes changing their pitch a semiquaver late. What was slightly unsettling draws attention to itself now, and when you put everything together, it sounds sloppy. And that's the way I left the playback of the pastoral snippet in my video comparing sample libraries, grumbling that I couldn't face making all the note-by-note changes that would make all the libraries play the music as phrased. But as Chopin said, he who phrases incorrectly is a lazy slob. So I've done it. I've rewritten the 30-second snippet to incorporate the phrasing within note lengths. Here's the result for the strings of the free orchestra. So, while we've fixed some of the sloppiness that all the orchestras except free were displaying in that first half, those detached repeated notes in the second half sound so like machine gunning it's difficult to listen to. We'll turn the second half back into legatos and add in the other instruments. And so all 4 orchestras playing with manual phrasing gives us the best comparison on the pastoral snippet. this exercise it's clear there are nuances of phrase start and phrase end that aren't captured by simply inserting rests. The classic phrasing of the free orchestra sounds more natural. Moreover, even though the repeated notes in the second half are not under slurs, the free library plays them smoothly enough that machine gunning isn't a real problem. Which all shows how nearly there classic phrasing is. But it needs to be on all libraries, on all instruments, and that bug of bridging between two phrases has to be fixed. As Chopin said, a notation program that phrases correctly will blow the competition out of the water.